Hello, guys. This is Eccentric Cast here, and I'm Spanx. And
Mez.
Skinny.
Hey, I'm the new guy. My name's Kama.
yeah, the new guy. We picked him up off the street, right off the street. He's a homeless person, but
He looks sexy for homeless, though.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
he's wearing a weird hat right now. So don't look at him.
I don't think it looks weird. That's your opinion on what fashion is.
Well, shh.
Yeah, I have Pokemon socks, so
What? You have
it's
Pokemon?
fine. Yeah.
Have you not?
Yeah, Pokemon
Wow.
socks, Mario pants, and Star Wars hat.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got and Fellowship kids.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, Lord of the Rings?
It's the
I was
Lord of the
like,
Rings
oh, okay.
reference.
No, that's not what that is.
But we're going with another story time. I think you got the gist of it with our last episode, so we'll just hop into it. All right. So once upon a time, there lived this kid named Jimmy. And he had a hard life when he was a kid. His mom didn't like when he told lies. He would tell lies all the time. He once pooped in his mom's pillowcases all the time, and he would blame it on the pet parrot. But he would do that a lot. And every time he would lie, his mom would beat the crap out of him. So he learned not to tell his mom's lies anymore. So one day, when he was 6, his mom made flaky biscuits. And they were the most delicious flaky biscuits that he's ever eaten in his life. And he, at that point on, when he was 6, he was like, nothing else matters in this world but these flaky biscuits that my mom gave me. So he got this strange obsession with the biscuits, and he named his obsession with these biscuits Michelle. So he was in love with these biscuits, named Michelle for so long. And he didn't think anything else mattered in the world. So he would when he was 6, he set his toys on fire. And his mom's like, why'd you set your toys on fire? And he's like, but nothing else matters but these biscuits that I love so much. So his mom thought he was lying again, so he beat the crap out of him. But then when he was 10...
Oh. When, now I already forgot his name. I'm sorry.
Jimmy.
One time, when Jimmy, this was halfway through his 6th year of being alive, he decided that Michelle was too good for him. So he decided to put her away in a box for a while, so that when he would tell his mom about Michelle, she didn't think that he was lying. So he put her away, and years passed. He was about 13 at the time when he finally brought Michelle back. And Michelle had grown very old. And Michelle was more flaky than she used to be, and so he decided that it was time to finally lay her to rest. So he took the box that Michelle was in out to the backyard and had a funeral for her. He mourned her death with flowers and everything like that. And then a few days later, Jimmy's mom saw that there was a flower bouquet in the front yard, and she asked Jimmy, what's this bouquet? Do you know anything about it? And he said that it was for Michelle, because Michelle had died. She asked who Michelle was, and Jimmy told her that it was his first love back when he was 6. And so she beat the crap out of him because he thought she was lying. He was lying again. And so, then he decided that he was going to pack up his belongings and run away.
While he was running away, he got really thirsty, so he was like, I should definitely bring my piggy bank with me, because I'm going to need money. So, he cracked open his piggy bank, took all the money out, grabbed all of his belongings, and he went outside, and his mom yelled at him and was like, well, the hell do you think you're going? And he was like, I'm leaving. And he was like, am I? But you're only like a teenager. Why would you be leaving? He was like, I'm tired of your shit, Mom. And then she's like, okay, good luck. And then while he was he started walking down the street. So he was like, man, I'm still thirsty. And then he walked right by a gas station. He's like, okay, I'm going in to go get me something to drink. He goes in, grabs a bottle of water, goes up to pay for it, and then there's a super gorgeous cashier. And then he instantly just asks her for her number, and she's like, I'm not giving you my number. And he's like, but why not? It was like, because you're a teenager. I'm like 25. I'm not giving you my phone number. But get out of here. And he's like, well, I guess I'll pay for this water, I guess. And so he pays for the water and walks outside. And then while he's drinking it, she comes outside and then she secretly passes him her number. And then he's like, what is this? And he's like, is this your phone number? And she's like, of course not. And then she winks at him and walks back inside the gas station. And then he's like, man, I don't know how I'm going to get in touch with her. I don't have a cell phone. So while he's figuring this out, he goes back in to talk to her and is like, do you have a cell phone I can borrow? And then she's like, sure, here you go. And then she gives him her phone, and he calls that number, and he's like, why did this phone go to voicemail? And then he's like, man, she did give me her phone, so it's probably not her phone. So then he decides to give her back the phone, and then he's like, politely says, thank you very much, have a good day. And while he was walking outside, he
trips on some dog poop, and then gets his new trousers that he loves so much, the Dockers, all wet when he fell into the puddle after he tripped on the dog crap. Upon reflection, he sees the name scribbled on the piece of paper that the girl that gave him the phone number was Michelle. So it took him back to all those memories and all those times that he spent with Michelle, and he was thinking, she, the human person, Michelle, is not as flaky as the Michelle I would like. But, that's okay. I could learn to live with a little more of a smooth skin against my skin. So he picks himself back up with a little more optimism and begins to stroll down the street a little more, and then decides, I think I left the toaster on. I probably should just head back home anyway. So he goes back home, and his mom was like, oh, so I guess running away wasn't for you, huh? And then Jimmy says, well, I guess not. So then, couple normal years pass by, so he's 15 now, and nothing's really happened in the household at that point. He's still pining over Michelle, and he's thinking, well, if I get a little older, I can call her when I'm old enough. That way it won't be too weird, because I think she was just messing with me. So Jimmy goes into the kitchen to make himself a sandwich, and his mom's there. Jimmy sneezes, and then his mom beats the shit out of him for it. So he's pretty upset at this point about it, and he's thinking, man, my life is just a living hell. I can't even sneeze in my own household without getting the shit beat out of me. Speaking of shit, I'll never forget that time I tripped on that dog shit a couple years back and ruined my favorite pair of Dockers. That being said, he gets back out of those bad memories and then decides to plan a trip
to the gas station that he went to years ago. So, as he was planning this trip, he forgot which directions he went when he was younger. So, he didn't even know what gas station it was. He just knew the number that he had and the chick's name, Michelle. So that's all he had to go off of. But he was planning it. He's planning it so properly. He packed up everything. He's like, you know what? I'm going to take this trip. It's going to be a couple days. I don't know where I'm going to stay. I don't know, because where am I going to stay at a gas station? But he'll figure that out when he gets there. So he's packing everything. Peanut butter sandwiches, and he loved peanut butter sandwiches, okay? It was his other obsession other than Michelle for the biscuit, But he was leaving again, and his mom's like, where are you going with a bunch of stuff? And he's like, I'm leaving on a trip, Mom. It's like, why are you leaving on a trip? I thought you already tried to run away, and it didn't work out for you. He's like, yeah, but this is not running away. It's just a trip, Mom. Don't worry. Don't hassle about it. Just a trip. Well, did you pack up everything? Yeah, I got my peanut butter sandwiches. You got to change of clothes? I didn't think that was necessary. I got this change of clothes. I'm fine. Do you just need one pair of clothes? Yes. Well, just this pair. All right. Yes. The description of the clothes doesn't matter, okay? But it's just this pair. That's all that matters, is this pair of clothes. So he's walking in the direction he thinks he went before, and he happens to run to the gas station again. And he went into this gas station, and he goes up to the front cash register, and he's like, this is not the same place. So he walks out, and he heads in a different direction, and he finally hits the right gas station that he went to. And he goes to the front, and it's some old lady that he had never even seen before in his life, and he's like, what's your name? And she's like, she happens to say, well, my name's Michelle. And he's like, is this the same woman that was there before? She's a lot older now. Could it be the same woman? Did time go faster outside of his house? He didn't know. Who knows? Who knows? But as he's talking to this old woman,
she says, I remember you, Jimmy. You came here just a couple of years ago, and I gave you my phone number. And Jimmy replies, but you were so much younger then. It's only been 2 years. And to that, she says, I know, but I have a condition that makes it so that time around me travels faster. So it looks like I'm older, but I'm really not. So it's kind of a weird thing, and if you go down to the hospital, they can explain it to you. And so Jimmy, he's curious, and so he decides, I'm going to go to the hospital and see about this disease. Or if it's not a disease. And so he goes down to one of the hospitals, and he asks for a specialist on like skin diseases and whatnot. And so they bring out a doctor, and he mentions Michelle. And Jimmy mentioned Michelle. And so the doctor says, yes, I know Michelle. I've been her doctor for about 5 years now. And Jimmy remembers that from the time he was, from the time he was 6 to when he finally laid Michelle the Biscuits down to rest was about 5 years. And so that ran through his head, and he asked the doctor, is there anything, like, is this, like, anything that just goes around, like, people have it, like, is it contagious, or, like, is it kind of like a religious thing, or, like, I don't understand. And so the doctor says, no, none of it's like spiritual, none of it's, it's completely natural thing, and about 30 people in the country right now have this, let alone the world. And so Jimmy says thank you for the information, goes back to the gas station, and he finds Michelle. And he tells her that he talked to the doctor, and to that, she said,
"Oh, so you met my doctor, huh?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure did. He seems like a very nice guy." And she's like, "Yeah, he really is. So did he tell you all about my condition?" And he's like, "Yeah, he really did. And it was weird, so I probably won't talk to you ever again." So, here's your number back that I've got for 2 years. So, good luck, Michelle. So he walked out of the gas station. And once he went outside, there was another gorgeous chick getting out of her car. So he walked up to her, and he's like, "Man, I have a cell phone now." And then he goes up to her, and he's like, "Can I have your number?" And she's like, "Sure." So it was like, man, that was a lot easier than the first time. So, and then she hands him her number, and then he's like, "Thank you very much, I'll call you sometime." And then he starts walking away, and while he's walking away, he ends up tripping on the same pile of dog poop again. And lucky for him, the puddle wasn't there. Instead, it was just a really big hole. So he fell down a very big hole once he tripped on that dog poop. And then he was like, "This shit hurt. How am I gonna get out of here now?" And then he's like screaming out of the hole, like, "Help! Get me out of here!" And he's like, "No one's showing up still." And I was like, "Well, I guess I'm gonna go to sleep now. Wait till morning." So he goes to sleep, and then by morning he wakes up and he's like, "Man, it smells like dog shit down here." And then he's like, "Yep, I gotta figure out a way to get out of here." So then he starts putting a bunch of piles of rocks together from the outer wall of the wall. Starts to pile them up, and then he's like, "Man, this is still a really deep hole. Well, I guess I'm gonna take another nap." So he takes another nap, and then by the afternoon, he was like, he wakes back up, and then he's like, "It feels really cool down here. I might live down here." And then he's like, "Man, I can't live down here. I told my mom I wasn't gone forever. So then I still have to get out of here." And then he starts yelling out of the hole still, and he's like, "Man, I still don't think anybody's going to show up. So I'm going to take another nap." So he takes another nap, and then he wakes up again, and he's like, okay. Let me pull this ladder out of my pocket. It's not an extendable ladder, so it only reaches like 3/4 high. So then he has to rock climb the rest. And then while he's rock climbing higher, he finally reaches the top of the hole. And then right whenever he reaches his hand out of the hole, he puts his hand in that dog poop. And then he gets out, and he's like, "Man, now my hand smells like dog shit." So he's like, "Man, now I gotta go home and take a shower." So on his way home, he ends up
falling back into another hole. But this time the hole's deeper and wider and filled with so much more dog excrement he couldn't believe. He's just thinking to himself, why would somebody create a hole this big and then just start filling it with dog poop? I just don't get it. But then he said, then he starts to think, well, I dropped the ladder. So now I'm in this hole, and I have no idea what to do. So obviously, Jimmy takes another nap. And then when he wakes up, he's 35. Time has went by because he spent that much time in the hole.
Napping.
He begins to reminisce on old times back into his life. He creates little patties out of the dog poop in remembrance of Michelle and strokes it and kisses it and loves it. He also makes a bust of the human Michelle out of dog poop. And then he beats the shit out of himself after he sneezes in remembrance of his mom. So he thinks, who knows, maybe this is just my life now. I'm living in a hole, and I have to eat the dog crap and then the juiciness of the dog poop to drink, because that's all I have now. So then the stranger comes by one day and peers into the hole, and he can't really see. Just all he can see is a silhouette. So he yells up out of the hole, says, "Help, I've been stuck down here for tens of years. Maybe you can assist me and get out of here. I'm really sick and tired of eating dog crap and just reminiscing on the past, because that's all I have for entertainment." Well, the silhouette was his mom. And she said, "Jimmy, what did I tell you about running away and leaving home? And now you're 35 and you're in a hole and you're so full of shit that that's where you belong. Are you ever going to do that again?" I said, "Well, of course not, Mom." And she said, "You're damn right you won't run away anymore, because the hole you fell into is in our new backyard because I moved and trapped you in here." But besides the point, she throws down a ladder and he climbs out of it. And then, right as soon as he gets to the top, his mom kicks him back into the hole and then lets him get back up again, just because she was pissed at him because he ran away for all those years. And then, of course, Jimmy gets up there and him and his mom hug and embrace each other in love. And he said, "I love you, Mom." And she says, "I love you too, Jimmy." Jimmy sneezes. She beats the shit out of him again. And
then he realizes, well, now I remember why I left in the first place when I was so young. You know, I'm tired of this. I don't like my mom anymore. So he grabs her arm, throws her in the hole. And he's like, you know what? Now I think I got this house. I'm going to just stay in this house and I'll just keep my mom in the hole. But he failed to realize that the ladder was still there. So she was climbing up. And he was about to open the back door. And he's about to go in the house and be like, "Oh, yes, I'm going to go in this house and have some fun." And she comes behind him, hits him in the head. And he's like, "Oh, no." So he stands up real quick and defends himself. And he realizes, oh, I stored a bunch of dog poop in my pocket. I'll throw that at her. So he's throwing this dog poop at her to try to keep her away from her. And she slips and falls back in the hole. And he's like, "Yes, this is my chance." So he runs, pulls back up the ladder real quick. I like how I'm moving my hands and nobody's really seeing it. But he pulls up the ladder real quick and he goes in the house. And there's this guy in there. And he's like, "Where? Well, what are you doing here? This is my house." And he's like, "No, this is my house. My mom gave it to me for a gift." And he's like, "Your mom? No. Who's your mom?" And he's like, "Well, I don't know her name. I just call her by mom." And he's like, "Oh, well, no, this is my house." And he's like, "Well, what's your name?" And he's like, "My name's Michelle." And he's like, "Oh no, another Michelle. Am I going to fall in love with this one too?" And he goes and he's like, "You know what? I think I can get used to it. His name's Michelle. I think, you know, I like that name. I don't know. It's got a nice ring to it. So, you know." And he's like, do you like biscuits? And he's like, wow, this guy is really good. I like this guy. And he's like, are they flaky? And he's like, the flakiest. and he's like, I think I'm gonna like you, sir. And he's like, well, thank you. And they're hanging out, having a great time. And then
they decide to play Monopoly. So, Michelle decides to invite a few of his friends, and, no, John! Anyway, he invites a few of his friends over, and, they start playing Monopoly. Well, Michelle is, the banker, and so after a couple laps around the board from everybody, there were only a few places left to buy. Well, Jimmy isn't lucky enough to land on any of them, and so he accuses Michelle of cheating because he bought about 20 of the properties, and so they get into this big, huge fight, and Michelle decides to offer those flaky biscuits as a peace offering. And so Jimmy says yes to the offering, and he eats about 3 of the biscuits. And then they continue on with their Monopoly game. They apologize and everything, all's dandy. And then later on that night, when Michelle's friends leave and Michelle goes to bed, there are 2 more biscuits left that haven't been eaten. So he decides this hasn't been the best of situations, so I'm going to take these biscuits and I'm going to leave. So Jimmy does just that. He gets a little sandwich bag and puts the biscuits in there and goes on his way. And he doesn't know where he's gonna go. So he goes down to the John can't breathe. He decides to go down to the park downtown and just sleep there for the rest of the night. So about 4 o'clock in the morning, an officer comes by the park, because that was his in his area of patrol, and he asks Jimmy, "What's going on? Why are you here?" And to that, Jimmy says,
I'm just hanging out, feeling like I got cheated at Monopoly. So he's like, "Why do you feel cheated at Monopoly?" Because Michelle's a fucking bitch. And I'm pretty sure she cheated me out of money and all of the places I could have bought on that game. Even though I landed on none of them. So, he's like, well, I'm gonna need you to not be hostile, okay? And he's like, okay, I won't be. And he's like, okay, then, as long as you're okay, I'm gonna go ahead and leave, okay? And he's like, okay, I'm okay, just, if you want to go ahead and go. And he's like, okay. So the cop leaves, and while the cop is leaving, he's like, man, speaking of Michelle, I might as well get rid of him as well, because... So he goes back to the house, and he's still sleeping, so he figures out that Michelle is a really deep sleeper, so he picks up Michelle and walks outside to the hole where his mom is at, and throws Michelle in the hole. And he's like, stupid bitch. This is what you get for stealing my money! So he obviously takes board games way too seriously. So don't play board games with him. He's a dick. So once he does that, then he's like, man, now I absolutely have no one to bother me in this house, so I'll just stay at the house again. So while he's at the house, he's just playing video games, and then he ends up getting a phone call on the cell phone he's had the whole time, and
Still in service.
and then
After 35 years.
once the phone rings, he answers it, and ends up being the random girl that got out of the car like
Years.
years ago. So, and he's like, I didn't know I gave you my number, and then she's like, you didn't. I ended up Googling you, and your number was on there. I was like, how was my number on Google? So once he figured that out, he instantly went on Google and looked to see if his number was on there. So he figured it out, and then he filed a lawsuit on Google because it's, privacy, and he likes privacy. So whenever he decided to do that, he lost because it's Google, and Google's a major corporation. So he lost, and then he became homeless because he didn't have a house in the first place. So the bank took the house since no one was paying for it. So he was just living out in front of the courthouse because he had nowhere else to go. So he was kept always laid on the steps and went to sleep. And then one day, an old man went up to him and tripped over his leg and spilled coffee all over him. And then he fell down a couple stairs and put his hand in another pile of dog poop. So he's like, man, this reminds me of a lot. So once he got up, he yelled at the old man. He's like, what are you doing? He's like, did you not see my legs there? And the old man was like, no, I'm blind. And he was swinging a stick around. And then he accidentally hit him in the arm. And he's like, ow, don't hit me with that. And he's like, hit you with what? It was like, the stick in your hand. It was like, this stick? And he keeps waving it in the air. And then he accidentally hits him in the head. And he's like, stop hitting me with that. So once he is like, so, I'm blind. Okay, I'm blind. So apparently he didn't know the whole time. That's why he had the stick. So he was just swinging it in the air, even though he was walking around everywhere and he still didn't know where he was going. So he was like, man. So then he started doing like regular blind people do, and tapping on the ground to figure out where they're going. So while the blind guy was walking up the steps, Jimmy decided to just run down the steps, and then
he tripped down the steps, of course, because Jimmy's just that clumsy. And then he hits his head as well, and then passes out. Then he wakes up, and he's 50 years old. And he's like, you know what? I'm 50 years old. I'm an adult man. I do need to get a roof over my head. So he finds one of the houses that are for sale and breaks the window and proceeds to just break and enter into the house and squat there for a while. While he's squatting in this house, he hears a crash in the living room window. And then he sees a note on it. Said, remember me, bitch? And it's a tube of flaky, buttery biscuits, reminding him of Michelle. And he thought, oh no, Michelle probably knows that after she died, I just had other lovers, and she probably didn't think that was too great when she was in Biscuit Afterlife. So then he begins to get paranoid, thinking that there's a biscuit ghost just watching over him, and he can't bear to be in the house any longer because looks similar to the house he lived in when he was younger. So, reminiscing back on that again, he goes to the second story and then throws himself down the steps after he sneezes. So that way he can remember his mom again. And then after that, he decides to exit the house. And then he comes across a shady-looking character. He's got a trench coat on and a black fedora. Looks like he's pretty well dressed. And then
the guy introduces himself. Hi, I'm Michelle. Yes, there's a lot of Michelles in this, just saying. And he's like, I have a will for you. And he's like, a will? Yeah. Michelle left it for you. Oh, I thought you were Michelle. Yeah, I am, but I meant the Michelle the Biscuit. And he's like, Michelle the Biscuit's left a large fortune for you. And he's like, a fortune? He's like, yes. They were... Michelle was the owner of the Pillsbury Biscuits, and she died, so she left all of the money that you need. And he was like, well, at this point, I'm like 55 now. I don't have a need for money. But he accepted it, and he's like, thank you, good sir. I don't know why you have to scare people with your trench coat, but it's okay. I'll forgive you for now. Here, he tips him $100, and he's like, go. So he leaves, and he's like, all right, now I've got enough money. I can do whatever I want. What should I do? So he proceeds to go to the store, and he buys all the biscuits he can get, because he knows that's what Michelle would want. So he goes and buys all the biscuits he can get. And he goes back to the house that he broke into and squatted. And he steps back through the window, because he doesn't have the key, so he can't go in there. So he steps in the window, and there's a family randomly sitting on the couch, and he's like, what are you doing here? Like, what? It's our house. And he's like, oh yeah, this isn't my house. So he walks up back out the window. He goes, and he buys himself a nice house, a 1-bedroom, because he didn't think he would need a bunch of room. But then he realizes, oh yeah, I bought all those biscuits, so what am I going to do with the biscuits? So he just piles them in the room, and he just squats in the corner, because all the biscuits he's got fills the whole house. And he's like, I should have bought a bigger house. But it's okay, I'm with my biscuits. I'm with my love, my life. And I've got plenty of food to survive, so. But I'm 55, so I don't know how long I'm going to live. And as he's sulking in his despair of his horrible life, and he sneezes again, and he realizes, I'm too old to beat myself up now. And he's sad that he can't beat himself up for sneezing, so he's sad, soaking up the biscuits with his tears, and he's like, this makes good gravy. I should patent this for my, people to eat teardrop gravy. It'll sell. So anyways, he's crying, and he's eating the biscuits, and
And while he's eating the biscuits, he decides, why did I just get the regular biscuits? I should have gotten the butter biscuits. So he goes down to the store, and he buys more biscuits, and he decides to give all the old ones... Sorry. He decides to give all the old ones to the food bank. So he goes down to the food bank with his 10 suitcases full of biscuits and proceeds to donate them. And the person that he sees, her name is Susan. And he's like, wow, that is a great thing. Because if this person was named Michelle, so many memories would come up. Excuse me. So then he proceeds to, chat it up with Susan, just small talk. Hey, how's it going? How you doing? So anyway, he donates all of his biscuits, and then he goes back home. And he didn't buy quite as many biscuits because he knew that they would go bad. So he now only has a closet full of biscuits. And then he decides to finally put his tear gravy into a recipe. You know, he tries to make a recipe with it. And it goes well, and he actually makes a pretty good recipe. He's had a few people try it. And so then he takes it down to get patented. And so they approve it, and he he then sends his recipe to Pillsbury, and they say, yes, we'll do this. We'll include packets of this gravy mix into our biscuits. And so that happens, and he gets a few free samples, and he tries them out, and they are the best thing that he's ever had. So, with all the excitement, he goes and tells everybody about this new thing that he's made and how he's been successful and everything. And one of those people happened to be Michelle from the gas station. All the years ago. And he sees Michelle, and he said, Michelle, you look great, even though she looks to be about 120. Because of her condition. And so he continues to talk with her and everything, catch up on life. So he catches up on life with her, and with all the success, and then he asks her out on a date, and so they go on the date, and the date is
Olive Garden. So he went into Olive Garden, and he's like, do you guys sell biscuits? And they're like, no, we have breadsticks. So he's like, well, I'll just get breadsticks then. So they bring out some breadsticks, and it's just one thing. It's like, is this all I get? It was like, well, you can bring more if you want. It's like, bring at least 2 more of these, and we'll be okay. So, and then she orders like some lasagna and a salad, and he's over there like, what are you doing? Do you not like breadsticks? So, and after that, whenever they finish eating, she pays because, you know, she has a job right now. He doesn't have a job, so, even though he came with a big lump sum of money, so, but he doesn't feel like paying, so. So she pays, and they're like, so, I'm gonna go ahead and start walking home. So, Michelle, have a good day. And she looks like she's about 120. So she slowly walks to her car by herself because he's already started walking home. So she gets to her car and leaves, and he's still walking. And then he finally makes it to his house a couple hours later. Goes in, and he's like, man, it's been so long, and I still have all these biscuits in my closet. So he's like, man, might as well not let them all go to waste. So he takes them all out of the closet and starts to open all of them. So he opens all of the biscuit containers, throw all the biscuits everywhere, and then he's like, all right. And then he walks up the stairs, and then he's like, man, I need something to drink. And he remembers he had some drink in the fridge. So he whenever he was walking back down the stairs, he ended up sneezing, and he's like, man, I'm just going to hurt myself one last time because I'm already old. And so he just throws himself down the stairs while he's like hitting the biscuits, and then he hits the wall, hits the banister on the way down, and then he lands, and he's like just laying there. He can't move because he has most of his bones broken because he's already really old. So he's laying there, and he's like, the biscuits. You would think that the biscuits would cushion him, but no, they didn't. Sorry. So once he thought about it, he's like, man, I really shouldn't have thrown myself down the stairs for Mom. She was a bitch. So while he was laying on the floor, he was thinking about all the miserable things in his life, and then he's like, I never made a will, so no one's going to get my money. So while he was laying on the floor, he
begins about thinking of ending his life. Because he's had such a terrible life, nothing good's came to him. He's loved and lost. He did have the tear gravy, but he wasn't proud of it. But he was, because he got money from it. But at the same time, he remembers all the Michelles, the Susan, the dog crap, the holes, the mom, and just everything that about his life was terrible. So he goes into the kitchen and ties a noose, puts it up on the light post thing, and gets a chair and then begins to try to hang himself. But the rope snaps, so he is allowed to live and continue on his life. And then he thinks, maybe if I had done more with my life, I'd feel better about everything. But he was given a second chance. But unfortunately, when he woke up after being knocked out from the rope breaking, he wakes up and he's 75. So now he's even older and he's done less with his life, and with the only thing to put a stamp on his life is the tear gravy that he had made years ago. He looks back and thinks, well, maybe I should have kept going when I ran away when I was 13. But no, I had to go back. Why did I go back? Because Mez said it was okay because he was the one telling that portion of the story. But anyway.
Anyways, he goes and he's like, you know what? I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. I'll ask my mom. Maybe she's still in that hole that I dropped her in years ago. So he goes back in the hole, and sure enough, she's still there. She's sitting with her arms crossed like this, looking up. She's like, I knew you'd show up. And he's like, Mom, you don't look any older. She's like, so? And he's like, well, you've been in the hole for, I'm 75, and I threw you in the hole like way long ago. And she's like, I'm your mom. It's just awesome like that. I'm just awesome like that. And he's like, you know what, Mom? I don't know what I'm supposed to do with my life. I've made some tear gravy. I've had my love of my life, Michelle, and you know, I've had her in the closet for a while. She just came out of the closet. No, she's not gay or anything. Okay? She's not gay or anything. But, you know, I might be gay because I flirted with the guy that you were having living. Is he still down there, by the way? She's like, no, I ate him. Oh, well, that's graphic. I didn't need to know that, Mom. She's like, how am I supposed to survive in a hole? And he's like, I don't know, I did, and I just slept. So, I'll just nap. Just take a nap, Mom. You'll be fine. And he's like, so I just need your advice, Mom. And she's like, yeah, you're coming to me for advice when you left. You left me in this hole to die. You know what? Maybe you should be dead. And he's like, wow, Mom, that's kind of, you know, terrible. And he goes and he sneezes and he falls in the hole. And she's like, hey, you sneezed. You know what that means? And he's like, no, Mom. And she starts kicking him. And she beats him to death. And that's the end of the story. So, that's the end of the life of the Biscuit Man, is what we're going to call him.
The life of the Biscuit Man.
The life of the Biscuit Man.
Okay, then.
So,
The life of the Biscuit Man named Jimmy.
Jimmy. Yes.
Jimmy.
Poor Jimmy.
He has a horrible life.
Yeah.
I was just absolutely just terrible.
We could just name it Jimmy and Michelle.
Yeah, Jimmy and
Jimmy
Michelle.
and
I like that one better. Jimmy and Michelle.
Jimmy and Michelle's.
Michelle's.
And the one Susan.
Yeah,
And his mom, who didn't really have a
all
name.
the dog crap.
That'd be a
there's-
really horrible name for a story, though.
What?
Jimmy
And Michelle's and the Susan and the dog.
Just one long title. And it was on a book. It'd be the whole cover, and then some of the book jacket.
Comes with your own dog crap and a biscuit.
No, extra flakier.
Oh, jeez.
All right, well, guys, that's the story time. So the second episode of story time. So we will catch you on the flip flop.